The latest in the Speaker of the House drama, and a new contender emerges for 2024, but it may not be who you think, so you need to tune in. We've got all of that and more coming up, and it all starts right now. Welcome to the News and Why It Matters. It is Friday. It's been a short week for us. I'm Sarah Gonzalez, and I'm joined today by Stu Burkier, of course, host of Stu Does America, which everyone should be subscribed to, not only on YouTube, but also wherever you get your podcasts. You're welcome, Stu.
It's wise advice, Sarah, as usual.
It's good to see you.
Good to see you, too. Happy New Year.
Yeah, Happy New Year. Glad you're back. Also joined by Alex Stein, BlazeTV host of an upcoming show.
It's coming out soon, but no.
BlazeTV host of a show that you can't find anywhere yet, but don't worry, you will.
I just want to make this point. It's been almost 3 weeks since I've seen you guys, and it's been an emotional reunion, you know?
Yeah.
Because I'll be honest, too, I've been excluded from a lot of stuff. Always picked last on the team, you know, oftentimes, you know, demonized, made fun of. But here at the Blaze, you guys are treating me like family. So this time apart, it's been tough, but now that we're back, let's get it going.
That's that's how you know that we get told that we are ableists all the time, but we're not, because we don't discriminate against the mentally deficient.
Exactly, yeah, they actually hire them here. So it's really nice. I think they get a government kickback for it, but who cares?
Yeah, don't talk about that. So I want to give the latest on, again, every day this week I've had to say, as of the time of this taping, let's go through what has happened so far in all of the Speaker of the House drama, because, you know, as you can see, a couple hours makes a lot of difference, especially with these last couple of days. So late last night, there was a report early this morning that late last night there could be a deal, a GOP deal that was emerging that could give McCarthy a path to the speakership. And now we're finding out that, let's see, there were several Republican members-elect who voted for McCarthy in the first ballot after opposing him in the first 11 votes. I think there were like 14 of them. It included Dan Bishop, Josh Burkeen, Mike Cloud, Andrew Clyde, Byron Donalds, who, that one was interesting to me because he was the other Republican who the others, the anti-McCarthy people, had nominated. He ended up voting for McCarthy today in that first ballot. Paul Gosar, Anna Paulina Luna, Mary Miller, Ralph Norman, Andy Ogle, Scott Perry, Chip Roy, who was very outspoken as well, and Keith Self. So very interesting. Again, as of the time of this taping, this could be, you know what? You could just take this entire conversation and throw it in the garbage by the time you watch it. But
yeah, actually, I have an update. Taylor Swift was just elected Speaker
I
of the
wish.
House.
Really? Wow.
Yeah, so Taylor Swift.
Okay, but did you, I kind of loved Matt Gaetz's nomination of Donald Trump.
Everybody loved that. What do you kind of love? That was, even Marjorie was laughing.
Well, but
Everybody
I'm just saying,
loved it.
no, but I'm saying, realistically, you get him as Speaker of the House, and then you run, that opens up the field for the presidency, and we don't have to have this bickering back and forth of well, he deserves it, no one can run against him. He's just already Speaker of the House, and he gets to just completely taunt Nancy Pelosi. That's
Wait,
perfect.
I have to step in, Sue. Yeah, this is coming from a person that was just invited to DeSantis' inauguration, so I wonder if we wanted DeSantis presidency, and I don't know if you guys know this, so
accusations are flying now.
Is she anti-Trump now, or did we just bust Sarah Gonzalez, some guys on there? I'm just kidding,
and I can't. No. I love that you brought that up, because I've heard that from people I can't believe you attended that, backstabbers. I'm like, this was literally for the governorship of Florida.
Yeah.
That's all that this was.
And
you guys are making it about something that it's not. He hasn't announced. He continues to not announce. I am supporting him being governor of Florida because he's the most based governor in the entire country, and he has paved the way for so much that other governors, including ours, have followed rather than actually leading. So yeah, of course I love the guy.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, objectively, you cannot say that he did a bad job in Florida. Anybody that says that is insane. So not liking DeSantis because you like a candidate more, it's like a high school drama.
He has red-pilled the entirety of Florida.
Yeah, no, so I love DeSantis.
In four
I like
years.
Trump, but DeSantis is, if you don't like DeSantis because you like Trump, come on, look in the mirror. You got some really mental gymnastics you're going through that really don't make sense.
Yeah, I can't deal with the drama there. But so how does this, I guess, perhaps McCarthy takes it today, but it has been fascinating to see these people continue. What were they called? The Taliban 20? which was, I would say, a little bit of an exaggeration. But, it's been interesting. It's been fascinating watching these people continue to hold out. A lot of them were saying, I don't care what you guys say. I'm never voting for the guy. But, I think a lot of them were using this as a negotiation tactic, and I think rightfully so, specifically Lauren Boebert, who said, we offered him a deal on border security and, a couple other things. I can't remember them off the top of my head. And he didn't do it. He didn't agree to these things. Later on, they came back and said, okay, well, now he's starting to agree to it. So, perhaps they are getting what they wanted out of the deal, or at least most of them.
There was always a large opposition to McCarthy being Speaker, and they went through this process over the past couple of months to try to win a bunch of these people over, and they successfully got a bunch of them over. Mm-hmm. Then it came up to voting time, and McCarthy's last move right before the vote was to scream at them and swear at them and call them terrorists. Mm-hmm. And so he created, there's about 20 people in this group, about I don't know, half of them, maybe less than half, were people who were just like, you just called me a terrorist, and I'm never going to vote for you because you're a bad person, right? That's where, you could see that there's a split there. People like Chip Roy were kind of like focused on, hey, let's make this House run better. Let's put some limitations on what the Speaker can do. Let's make this thing run like it's supposed to, which seems like a really rational idea. And,
Did you say radical or rational?
Both, I guess, in this country. So he was, that group of people came over here over the past 24 hours. There was some sort of negotiation. There is a deal. They were examining it overnight, and a bunch of the people, even some of the people that were thought to be ungettable, came over. And so I think they're down to 7 people holding out. They can have 4, and he can still win the speakership. Though it all depends too on like how many people are there to vote. Like Ken Buck wasn't there, so the number was a little bit lower. One Democrat I think was not there as well. This was the first vote where McCarthy actually beat Jeffries. So the first time he was actually ahead of the Democrat after the Republicans got elected. So it's been a bizarre process. I don't think anybody is sitting here saying like, oh, Kevin McCarthy's going to be gangbuster. He's going to be the greatest guy of all time. We're all going to think of him as an incredible speaker. The question is whether, how long does this go on? And is there anyone else? They're talking about, okay, McCarthy goes away, you put Scalise in there, you put Stefanik in there. All right, it's not going to be that much different. You put in a conservative, you're not going to get the moderates on the left side of the party. You put in some moderate, you're not going to get the conservatives, though you might get some Democrats. That seems even worse to me. So I don't know where to go on this. I think eventually he's going to get over this line, though. He's only got 3 more people he needs to win over, and he can probably bribe them into voting for him. Yeah,
if they're already to the point where he's agreed to, that's what the report was, that they lowered the threshold for them to vote for a no confidence, right? Like a motion to vacate for Speaker of the House, lowered it all the way to 5. And then they were like, no, that's not good enough. We want it to be 1. And he was like, fine, I'll do it. Yeah. So, you can imagine,
he
like, anything's on. Yeah, anything's on the table.
Well, obviously he wants it, but see, this is what I'm frustrated about, is that these people that are holding out, I want them to continue to hold out because it leaves them with very few options. And one of those options is either getting a plurality vote, which he would lose to Hakeem Jeffries, so that he doesn't want to do that. And the other one would be actually working with the Democrats, which I would love, because then we'd have evidence to show this is a uniparty. They say, oh, I'm a conservative. You're going to give $1 billion, trillion, quadrillion dollars to the Ukraine. It's like, I want somebody that cares about America and puts American citizens, American veterans, American children, Americans first. And McCarthy's not that guy. And so I think if they could just hold out a little longer and they put him in a position where he had to do that, that would wake up a lot of people. Not that the people aren't awake, but the media, everybody, it would give this whole narrative that, okay, people say they're conservative, but really they're all part of the uniparty.
Yeah, and I think the plurality situation that they can go for now, they have to get over 218 votes to get that rule change. But if they did it as of right now, McCarthy this is the first vote he was actually ahead of Jeffries.
Oh, this one he would have.
So he could theoretically win it, but then you get down to that line where
he doesn't want to risk the chance of calling a plurality vote and then losing it.
And he could lose it because you could see. Could you see a situation where a couple of these never McCarthy people who are just like, you know what? Screw you, I'm going Jeffries. Yeah. And then that whole thing happens. It's possible. It's unlikely, but it's possible.
Well, these people have egos that are the size of the Goodyear blimp, and I'm a pimp on a blimp, so I wouldn't put it past them. They literally do not care about Americans. They care about themselves more. So, and this is the other thing, is the backdoor dealing with McCarthy. Oh, don't primary these candidates. Don't do all this. This is stuff that he should be doing already. They shouldn't have to be making backdoor deals with their own party in order to get his vote. So it's just a really screwed up system. It's really frustrating to see as Americans because it shows you how incompetent incompetent and how dysfunctional our federal government really is.
Yeah, and it's just frustrating. I saw Rogan O'Hanley point this out on Twitter, and I thought it was just such a great point that, we continue to play this. I say we. I don't consider myself a member of the Republican Party anymore, so I shouldn't say we. But you see the mainstream Republican Party continue to be like, well, we have to put up someone who can work with the Democrats because, I'm sorry, did you not see Nancy Pelosi the last billion years, however long she was Speaker of the House? She impeached Trump twice over BS, crap, and then she's ripping up his State of the Union address when she's standing behind him for that viral moment. She's like, she didn't care what the other side thought of her. Why can we not agree that we need someone exactly like that? You have to fight fire with fire. I'm tired of people saying, well, we have to be the moral ones. We can't stoop down to their level. Why the hell not? Yeah. It doesn't matter if you're playing a game and one of you is playing by the rules and the other is not. Who wins? Right? Yeah. Like, if you can't continue to play by the rules when the other team has decided there are no rules.
It makes it very difficult to have a fair game. I think what's interesting, too, is that look at the difference between the Democratic and Republican Party here. There's many differences. You just pointed out a great one. Another one is that the far left of the party, on the Democrats, could have done the same thing last time with the squad and a few more, right?
To get universal health care was one of the ideas.
Was one of the big ideas. And they wound up not doing it. There's a couple of reasons for that. Pelosi has some sort of mysterious power over them. But also, even though Nancy Pelosi didn't go as far left as they wanted, they knew in their hearts that she was dedicated to the generalized cause of moving this country far to the left.
Yep.
That is not what we have in the Republican Party.
That's exactly right.
I do not have the opinion of Kevin McCarthy. I call him Andy every single time. Kevin McCarthy, to move his heart, his inertia, the current behind him is not to move it to the right of the party. It might be to move it less to the left than Nancy Pelosi. Sometimes you can't always tell that.
Maybe.
But do I think that we'd have lower taxes if Andy McCarthy was king rather than Nancy Pelosi?
Kevin.
Sure. Kevin McCarthy. Why? Andy, you jerk.
You watch too much football.
I've got 10 different people named Andy McCarthy in my head, and only one that's Kevin.
I'm thinking of Mike McCarthy.
Mike McCarthy, you got that. You got Andy McCarthy is I know this because I've screwed it up so many times. People are like, are you calling him the 80s actor? No. I think the guy that's in my head is the writer, the conservative writer, Andy McCarthy.
Okay.
Whatever. The bottom line is,
now I'm going to mess
it up. I apologize.
His name's Kevin McCarthy.
I'm going through all the McCarthys in my head.
Yes.
Okay, go.
So Kevin McCarthy, though, we don't have that opinion of him. If we had someone who we believed was a little more moderate than us, or maybe a little more open to some policies we don't like, but had a general idea of we need to have a smaller government and we need to take, the federal government out of the business. Like Ron Paul, there's plenty of stuff I could find that I would disagree with Ron Paul, I'm sure. But at least I know his overall intent is generally the same as mine.
Right.
And that is not what we have with McCarthy, or really most people that you could name in Congress.
Yeah.
Oh, but let's applaud the Republican politicians that are actually standing up for what they believe in, unlike the Democrat ones that wouldn't stand up for what they quote unquote believe in.
Yeah.
Sure.
I want to get to this before we have to go to break. So I mentioned that there is a new contender for 2024. Well, drum roll, please. It is, of course, Donald Trump's ex-national security advisor, John Bolton.
Wow.
The contender literally no one was asking for is
Except
now,
John Bolton.
Except John Bolton has now announced he will join the race. I want to play a clip for you of John Bolton making that announcement, and I want you to pay very close attention to which network he has chosen to make this announcement on. Watch.
John Bolton has exclusively told Good Morning Britain he wants to become the next president of the United States.
What would a John Bolton America look like if you were commander-in-chief?
I would get in to win the nomination, and I would do it primarily on the basis that we need a much stronger foreign policy. I think Trump's support within the party itself is in terminal decline.
What would you say to your critics who will obviously watch this interview and they will say, okay, listen, John, you simply don't have the experience?
Well, I wouldn't run as a vanity candidate. If I didn't think I could run seriously, then I wouldn't get in the race.
John Bolton's PR team blasted out that he was going to run to all of the mainstream media outlets in America. And they're like, we have a big announcement. John Bolton's going to announce. Do you want the exclusive? And literally everyone in America was like, nah, you can just give it to Great Britain. That's fine.
It's weird considering like the country exists because we exited Great Britain. Like that was the whole thing. The whole plan of the country was to not be dependent on Great Britain anymore. I mean, look, Bolton has no chance of winning. I think we all know that. He's not an unserious person. Like he has plenty of experience to be president of the United States.
Doing coups.
Yeah. He's got plenty of experience in the deep state.
He has plenty of experience. I mean, all throughout government. I mean, he's obviously much more hawkish than the base of the party is at this point. I mean, I don't think he'd have much support at all.
Yeah.
But I mean, he's not like just some random guy. He's been around for a long time, but there's not going to be any support for John Bolton. It would be a vanity candidate, and he's wanted to run for a long time.
Right. Alex, last
Yeah,
one.
I mean, John Bolton, like I said, he said January 6th wasn't a coup because I'm the expert in coups, basically, quote unquote. So, I mean, this guy, he might be president if he can cheat and lie and steal, so I wouldn't put it past him, but yeah, his chance to become president, 0%.
That really was an amazing, amazing moment.
Well,
that he
to say
actually
that.
literally said that
Yes, he
publicly
did.
and didn't think anything of it.
Well, I had to say this, just like there's elections in Venezuela, now they seem to be happening in Harris County. It's like somehow all the same systems and same backdoors all seem to exist here in America.
What were you going to say real quick?
I was going to say, I read the book that Bolton put out, a year or two ago, and he talks about all these things he was involved in. And quite literal, easiest example was a very public one, which was Venezuela, right? Like, they, including Donald Trump, they were all very supportive of this. He was working with Trump at the time, and they were absolutely like in the middle of doing a public coup. But there were other examples in the book where he was, he was deep in that world. The deep state gets overused, honestly, at times. But like with him, this is the guy. He was the one pulling these strings around the country in multiple around the world, in multiple administrations.
Yeah. All right, we got to take a quick break. We will be back with more. First, I want to thank our sponsor, My Patriot Supply. So, look, even the president has said there are going to be food shortages. And a lot of you, if you're in New York or, there are some places I've been seeing pictures where they're just literally out of eggs. They're out of all of the food that you might need to feed your family. You don't want to get caught where you're just like, oh, they're out of all of the food at the grocery store and I have nothing here. You guys want to call us preppers. Well, let me tell you, you're not coming to my house when all of the apocalypse happens, okay? So you got to go to My Patriot Supply. Right now, you will save $200 on a 3-month emergency food kit from My Patriot Supply. They are America's largest preparedness company. You can go to preparewithnews.com. Stock up now while you can still save $200 per kit. It's going to be breakfast, lunch, dinner. It's going to make sure that it gives you 2,000 calories per person so that you can have and keep that energy. You can go to preparewithnews.com for these kits. I'm just telling you, this is not the kind of thing that you want to sleep on because the whole point is to be prepared before something bad happens. Go do that at preparewithnews.com. Not sure how many of you noticed the date today. It is, of course, January 6th, and that means it has been 2 years since all of the January 6th debacle happened at the White House in 2021. I think this is a story that often gets overlooked in a lot of places, that there are still a lot of political prisoners. There are still a lot of people who, I would say, nonviolent people who are being held or are being, harassed to put through the criminal justice system because of a political vendetta. And I want to welcome to the program once again to discuss this with me, Joe McBride of the McBride Law Firm, who has represented a good amount of these January 6thers. And Joe, I just wanted to thank you for being on, by the way, today. I know you're busy.
Good to be here.
Yeah, I know you're a busy guy, so I value your time and I appreciate it. But you have just really led the way in bringing awareness and attention to what is happening to these January 6ers who are still, I guess, having their cases adjudicated, but oftentimes still in confinement in really horrendous conditions. What is your sense of, are these things close to being tied up yet? Or do we still have a ton of people who are, having the criminal justice system abuse them? Where are we in this process? Because it's been 2 years.
Well, let me give you a little hint as what the true answer to that question is. Yesterday, I appeared in D.C. District Court, in front of Judge Thomas Hogan. He is the most senior judge on the bench at 85 years old. And he announced to us, surprisingly, that he was retiring from the bench. And we were like, wow, you're a distinguished judge retiring from the bench. Like, sort of what is going on? And he didn't give us much, obviously. He doesn't have to. He just simply needs to say that he's going. But he did say that he got word that there are another 1,000 of these cases coming, and he just had no interest in doing that for the next 4 to 5 years. And because of that, he was, his last day on the bench would be the 31st of January, and that my case with Ryan Nichols would be transferred, and it was transferred yesterday to Judge Royce Lamberth, who I've yet to meet. But another 1,000 are coming. So this is going nowhere. This is going to get worse. They are doubling and tripling down on this fight. And people need to wake up. This is very, very serious. I've been saying this for 2 years, that you could be next. They went from looking at people who were inside the Capitol to looking at people who were merely in D.C. that day. Now they're going after the entire community.
God, it's hard to imagine what kind of charges they want to put on these people. I want to get to the case, the trial that you have coming up next week, I believe. This is, of course, the infamous guy who put his feet on Nancy Pelosi's desk. Tell us about that case and what are the charges against him?
So Richard Barnett is a 61-year-old man from Arkansas with no criminal history of any kind. He showed up to the Capitol on January 6th to petition the government for redress of grievances. He was pushed into the east side of the Capitol, the Columbus doors. They were opened up from the inside. He was pushed in against his will. He had to use the bathroom. And he started looking for a bathroom when he was inside. He wound up in Speaker Pelosi's office. 2 journalists from the French Associated Press said, hey, why don't you sit down and take a picture? He took a picture, and the rest is history. He has become one of the faces of the quote-unquote insurrection, which is obviously a misnomer. This should have been wrapped up with a misdemeanor trespass plea at best. Instead, they have turned this into, the prosecution of Osama bin Laden. It's absolutely ridiculous. We had been operating under one set of charges until recently, but then the government probably realized that we were about to beat them on the original indictment. And about 10 days ago, they indicted him. They superseded his indictment, adding a civil disorder felony charge, complicating the entire case for us despite no change in fact. It's completely unfair. It's completely against the rules. We filed a motion saying, hey, this is unfair. We at the very least need more time to gather ourselves here. Court really didn't care. We're going to trial on Monday. I put a great team together. It's led by myself, Attorney Jonathan Gross, Brad Geyer, Carolyn Stewart. We're going to go in there and we're going to do great work under very unfair circumstances and under incredible odds. But we have no choice. We signed up for this. We were glad to stand in the gap for him and to stand on the right side of history. And we're going to do our absolute best to get him justice in this very unfair situation.
Yeah, it's really hard to understand, Joe, why more Republicans are not speaking out about this. I mean, it really, truly is like, this has been going on for these people for literally 2 years. They have been thrown into this, and it's been their entire life. And it's like, as soon as it happened, all the Republicans were just magically, it's like they got the little Men in Black light, and they just completely forgot that it ever happened. I mean, including sometimes, I hate to say it, but including Donald Trump. Where are the Republicans on this? Why are they not talking about this?
Some of them are, most of them aren't. You make a very good point. Look, I'm a Brooklyn guy. I grew up with a bunch of different gangster movies that I love. There's one in particular called The Bronx Tale, and there's a moment in the movie where C, the young guy, he's talking about how Mickey Mantle is his hero, and Sonny says to him, "Hey kid, Mickey Mantle's never going to pay your rent." And The little boy learned in that moment, wow, this is my idol, but my idol doesn't care about me. He doesn't even know my name. Mickey Mantle's never going to pay my rent. I got to go out there and I got to do it for myself. And that's my reference for these Republicans in Congress. They run on this issue of being heroic. They run on this issue of being men or women of the people. But when the rubber meets the road, they tuck tail and run. So what we can do is primary them and vote them out. We have some very good America First Republicans who have come in. We obviously have some who have been there for quite a while who are fighting. I hear, based on negotiations and discussions, that Representative Gosar is one of the most outspoken voices in these negotiations right now. And you have a couple other good people there. But by and large, the Republicans have done a whole lot of nothing, and they should be held fully accountable. These people are not our friends. People who spend their entire life in government, they're about their friends and their social circles. They don't care about the people back home. That's why there should be term limits. This is why there should be a full investigation into January 6th. Any Republican that doesn't vociferously speak out in favor of an investigation into January 6th should not be in Congress anymore. We got to get rid of them. We got to rout them out, because what they're doing is straight up cowardice. It's un-American and it's wrong.
I can't agree with you more. So, Joe, one last question for you. I would imagine that a lot of these people, they're just regular Americans. They don't have the money to just drown themselves in legal bills. How are they paying for all of this?
That's a great question, Sarah, and I appreciate you asking it. These are your paycheck to paycheck, middle American, blue collar Americans with no savings. They've never taken a free dime from the government, but they've never been able to save a dime for themselves. As a result, they have not been able to finance these cases. We have taken these cases on with the hope that the American people would contribute. We have give, send, goes for each of these people, and there's also a global give, send, go on my website, McBrideLawNYC.com. You can go there and look for the J6 tab, and there you can donate. Just go to the global one and just donate. All that money right now is going to Richard Barnett's trial, because that's where it's needed most. But we have had to crowdfund and crowdsource this stuff. And just for some perspective, Richard Barnett's original Give, Send, Go had like $300,000 in it. They took it, they hijacked it, they shut it down, they sent all the money back to his people, and he was never raised. We haven't even raised $20,000 in this case. But he was my first January 6th case that I took. Google, social media, all the platforms have made it impossible to raise money in his case. But we are going to defend him as if we had $1 million budget, because that's who he deserves. We're going to defend him as if he were my own father, because that is what you're called to do as an attorney. But if people are inclined to give, you can go to my website, you can give there. And if you can't give, please support us with your prayers, because we need them badly.
Yeah, well, I just can't tell you again how much we appreciate all of the work that you guys are doing. You and obviously Alex Stein is here. Alex and I personally know John Gross as well. And you guys are just like, y'all are the dynamic duo over there. So yes, we appreciate it very much. And keep us posted on how everything's going.
Will do. God bless you guys, and God bless America.
Thank you, Joe. All right, we've got to take a quick break, but first we want to thank our sponsor, Upside. So inflation has us all thinking about different ways to cut back. Maybe you're driving less, maybe you're dining out less, maybe you're buying less from the grocery store. Maybe it's because there's no food there, I don't know, but we can all agree there's nothing fun about less. That is why you need to use Upside. It's a really, really great app for anyone who, does things like buy gas, buy groceries, dine out, which is literally everyone. And you don't have to cut back because you're getting cash back on every purchase. It's very, very easy. You just go to your phone, download the free Upside app, and if you use my promo code NEWS, you'll get $5 or more cash back on your first purchase of $10 or more. You can claim an offer for whatever you're buying on Upside. You go to your app, you check in at the business, you pay as usual with whatever your credit card, whatever, and you will get paid. And by the way, in comparison to credit card rewards or loyalty programs, you can earn 3 times more cash back with Upside. Upside users are earning more than $1 million every week. That's probably why they have such a high rating on the App Store. You got to go there, download the app, and use promo code NEWS to get $5 or more cash back on your first purchase of $10 or more. That is $5 or more cash back on your first purchase of $10 or more using promo code NEWS.
January 6th.
I mean, we're just live on television.
Oh, sorry.
So I want to go back to a story that I think broke during the break, but I think it's a very important one that we haven't discussed yet. Well, since the break, but this is a story that we've been talking about for years, which is Jeff Younger, the Jeff Younger case here in Texas, who, for those of you who don't know, you're probably familiar with the story, maybe you don't recognize the name, but he has been in this very, very long, years-long battle with his ex-wife against transitioning his young son, James. So they went through a long divorce process. The ex-wife is a pediatrician, and there's video documentation of, the little boy at 3-4 years old, saying that, mommy tells me that I'm a girl. And so there's just been this battle, and he took it to the Supreme Court here in Texas, and the Texas Supreme Court has ruled against his appeal to prevent his ex-wife from moving his son, James, to California, where, of course, he is concerned that she will have access to whatever she wants to mutilate over in California as a child. Excuse me, and it's just been really difficult to understand all of the rulings in this particular case, other than the judge just must be a giant liberal. Because I understand, and I know Glenn talked to Jeff on one of his specials recently, and I know you're familiar with the case, Alex, as well. And I think, perhaps, I'm not saying this could be the case, but I do know that, the judge put Jeff under a gag order. He's not supposed to talk about it. So, you might say, like, well, he didn't follow the rules, and so she's upset at him. But I would argue, too, that putting him under the gag order is completely unprecedented. And how else do you fight back and speak out against it if you're literally not allowed to talk about this crazy thing that's happening to your son? But she was able to get this decision, and now she is going to move the boys to California, where God knows what's going to happen to them. But it's just really sad to see happening in Texas.
Yeah, it's obviously completely insane. Right? We live in such weird times. I mean, we've been doing the show I've been doing the show with Glenn for long enough now, where I can remember us dreaming up crazy scenarios to mock the current thing happening, whatever the cultural bent was at the time. And so many of the things we came up with as comedy bits have come true. Yeah. Things like this were supposed to be completely insane, where you could just say with words and you say certain words and change someone's gender by just saying they're a girl. That's obviously crazy, right? And I mean that in the clinical sense. It is obviously crazy to believe that could be true, and yet half of our society has decided it is. How do you push back against that? I mean, it's one thing when someone leaves the state, right? It's sometimes difficult, for one state to essentially overrule another state. But the fact that these things happen, even in red states like Texas, is shocking. Shocking. Now, of course, there are liberal judges in Texas. There's no doubt about it. You go to cities, you'll find
Dallas
them.
County, man.
Yeah, Harris
exactly.
County.
Yeah. There's tons of them here. It's a red state overall, but there's plenty of pockets of blue in it, and that may just be what we found here. But it's a shocking thing, because if you can't come up with a basic understanding of truth with you and your fellow man, you cannot operate a civilization. Right? You can't. It doesn't mean we have to agree on everything, but the fact that a boy is a boy and a girl is a girl is pretty foundational to the human experience, and we can't even agree on that anymore.
Well, actually, I'm going to go a little less controversial.
Okay.
We shouldn't be chopping off body parts of, I would say, anyone, but children. Right? We should not be cutting off children's breasts. You would think, right?
That's a very general statement, but I think it can be that general. It's that children under 18 should not have any sort of surgery that would, cause them to have some sort of problems later on in life, whether they change their mind or whether they decide to keep their, transition. But with the Jeff Younger case, this is really what scares me. I've always, I've met Jeff. I like Jeff. I consider Jeff a friend of mine. But this is the problem for me that really scares me, is that because it was such a public court case, because it was such a public battle, and because we know the system is rigged against us, the system took his kid away because he fought against the system. So for me, it black pills me. It's like, oh my gosh, if we fight against the system, they're literally going to take your kid, change his sex, move him to a different state, and you literally have no legal recourse over your own biological son. So for me, it's like this black pill. This is, like you said, this is the dystopian future, and we're in it. It's kind of like, this doesn't even seem real. And then I also kind of look at this problem, and I'm like, I'm sure there's some liberal places in Europe, but this is like an American problem. We are the leader in, transitioning children. So we need to stop this, guys, or this might be the Jeff Younger of America, but there's going to be 1 trillion Jeff Youngers in other countries. I mean, I hope not that many, but gosh, I just hope this isn't the start of we see another high-profile case where a guy loses custody of his son that he doesn't want to transition, but the mom does, and it's just this huge, insane fight where it divides us between left and right, and at the end of the day, the kid loses.
Yeah. Yeah, well, I mean, it does give, look, I have this conversation a lot with the audience and just with people out there on social media that it's frustrating for me when I go to all of these events and I get the footage that I get that I don't see, I'm like, where are the dads making a big stink about this, right? Where are the dads of the community standing up and speaking out? And this does give credence to a lot of the defense that I hear, which is, what are they going to do? Because they fight with their wives, they get divorced, and then their wives are going to trans their kids and leave them, right?
Well, they trans them sometimes to get back at the dad.
I know. That's what I'm saying. Then they're just going to do it because they're going to be spiteful, and that's how women are. And, it's like, I'm not like...
and this isn't every circumstance. Well, no, but Sarah, this is real. No, I'm saying we cover this. This is real. You'll often see it's a single mom that is oftentimes transitioning their boy to a female or vice versa. It's almost like a pet. It's insane, and I've seen it touching and feeling. I can see it with my hands that this is real. This isn't just some right-wing conspiracy. So for me, it is very scary, and it just paints a picture of the future that I don't like to see.
Yeah,
right.
To go back to your point you made about how the kids are the ones losing here, I mean, it was really true. And you talked about the show Glenn did with Jeff Younger. Yeah. He also did a recent podcast with a girl named Chloe.
Chloe Cole.
Chloe Cole. I think she's 17.
She's been on the show.
She had a vasectomy at 14.
Yeah. I mean, you saw the damage. I don't know how, if everyone in the audience is familiar with it, but she went through a transition. She was encouraged to do it, really at the behest of doctors even more than her parents, and wound up, of course, regretting it later on and detransitioning. And now she's suffering in a body that has been mutilated. Really, I mean, almost, obviously against her will. We talk about this with people who, the statutory rape charges are against someone, and we say appropriately, well, they can't consent. Whether they consented or not, they can't consent because they're too young to consent. That is the situation with so many of these stories. Yeah, they might go along with it at that time, but then when they regret it later on, it's not their fault for making the wrong decision at 12, right? It's the fault of sometimes the parents, sometimes medical authorities, sometimes judges. Whatever the case is, this has got to stop. And I think the only way it does stop are massive lawsuits, that go after these institutions and terrify them from teaching this stuff and performing these surgeries.
Well, I just want to make this quick point.
Really quick.
Okay, just real quick. Gender dysphoria is a mental health issue. You're not going to fix it by cutting off any body part. So until we go after the mental health issue, it's just going to continue to get bad.
Amen. All right, we got to take another quick break. First, I want to thank our sponsor, Chamonix. So, look, it's a new year. We got some New Year's resolutions. Maybe your New Year resolution is to, I don't know, look a little younger. Or is that just me?
No, we all want to look younger.
Is that just me?
Come on now.
Okay, good. It's not just me. They've got a New Year's clearance event going on right now. You can save over 70% off Genucel's most popular package to take care of all of your skincare needs, whether it be fine lines, maybe forehead wrinkles, sagging jawline, dark marks, skin redness, and even under eye bags. Trust me, I use immediate effects all the time, and you literally can feel it working under your eyes. It is the craziest thing. And by the way, it's a guarantee or 100% of your money back, so you have nothing to lose. Right now, they've got a top-selling hyaluronic acid serum. It's included absolutely free in every most popular package. You got to go to Genucel.com/Y. Enter code Y at the checkout. You're going to be upgraded to free shipping for the new year. Don't wait. Go to Genucel.com/Y. That is GENUCEL.com/Y. All right, I want to kind of go back to the same topic here, but just a different angle. So there's a new Dutch investigative report that has revealed that the 2006 study upon which, this entire medical experiment that we're doing to our children, giving them, puberty blockers and all of these things it was just funded by a maker of puberty blockers, which will come as no surprise to those of you who have already been jaded by the medical community, as I have for very, very, very many years. But I think it's important that the public realize that, Okay, let me just give you this one. So this is an article that was just published, the investigation that I mentioned. It's talking about the Dutch protocol, which involves blocking the puberty of adolescents who are suffering from gender dysphoria, and it forms the basis for gender-affirming care for the model that has been adopted by pediatric gender clinics all over the world. And it was funded by Ferring Pharmaceuticals, the company that makes the drug triptorelin as a puberty blocker. And the research is it's very, very shaky, and it's been discredited numerous times due to a lack of control. So it was never a good study to begin with, but I think it's very important to take a step back and realize that this is not just a Dutch problem. Like, this is happening, I would argue, in America more than the Dutch, that you got to look at who is funding these studies that the government will tout as, well, look, I want to say something and I won't because I'm going to get us banned from YouTube. But I'm just saying, oftentimes the government is in bed with Big Pharma, and, the government is funding these studies. But even when the government is doing it, you got to look at what their angle is, because if they want a certain outcome, they will achieve a certain outcome. Just go watch the movie Vaxxed. I'll just put it that way. Are you shocked, Stu, that the company that makes puberty blockers funded the study that shows that we should be giving children puberty blockers? It's
very bizarre. Who could have seen it? Who could have seen it coming? And I even take offense to the term gender-affirming care.
Yeah.
If you have a kid that is born a boy and you tell it is a boy, that is affirming their gender.
Affirming. Yep.
Telling it is a girl is the opposite of affirming their gender.
Right.
We need to get these terms straight, first of all.
Yeah, I totally agree.
Yeah, I mean, and I just look at the situation that's happening in the Dutch. When you look at these studies, they're all rigged in some sort of way. And we look at these prestigious universities like Harvard and Stanford, and any study that comes out of there, we're like, oh, this is the truth. It's so black and white, whatever they say. But at the end of the day, these studies can be rigged just like any election, just like anything else in the world. So for me, if you quote a study, I basically, I don't even take that as credit. If somebody, like in a debate, I'm oftentimes in debates like, oh, well, this study says this. I don't believe any of these studies, because the same people that are putting on these studies are the ones that are selling you the drugs that in these studies say the drug is good for you.
Right, yeah. Well, when you allow them to study themselves, I mean, you see what happens like with Pfizer. They're like, oh, we'll take 75 years to get back to you with that data.
Mm-hmm. And it's 100% in not spreading. I think the early data was that it was 100% not going to get COVID when the vaccine first came out from their own data.
That was one of the statistics that Albert
100%,
Bourla,
I believe.
He did say 100%.
Yeah. So.
I can't remember what it was for. Was it transmission?
Either transmission or, I guess it was transmission. But regardless, these guys can lie because they're the ones that are cooking the books. And then when it comes to the pharmaceutical industry, I'd like somebody to freaking police the FBI or police our own police force. But oftentimes, it's all crooked and it's all rigged.
Yeah. Last words, Stu. We got 10 seconds.
I mean, look, you should be able to make your own choices, right? And it's like what they're doing now is banning people from social media and getting people fired from their jobs for these reasons. It's scary, and the kids are the victims.
Yeah, amen. All right, we got to take a quick break. We'll be back. I've been having this philosophical, weird thing that I keep going back. We've only got about a minute and a half left, but I just wanted to let everyone know, all you comic book lovers, it's too bad Eric July's not here to speak on this. DC Comics has they have a new storyline with a pregnant Joker character, but it's a guy. So it's just.
I love the comic too. It's like, hey, what's happening here? I think you're pregnant. You're right. Like, this is not. As far as I know, Sarah, you would know. Is this how women find out?
No.
Like they just have 8 months and they're just like, what's going on?
No. He looks like he just had a really long night at Taco Bell.
Yeah. I've looked like that before, and I'm pretty sure I wasn't pregnant. I will say. By the way, Sarah, we have Eric July on Stu Does America tonight.
Great.
To comment on this very story. So.
Wow. Well, he stood me up to do Stu's show.
Well, you had you got the famous lawyers on right now. I got Eric. I mean, we all have to have somebody on.
I can't wait to hear what he has to say about this. I bet he lost his mind.
Oh my God. I mean, he's also like, I'm going to be a billionaire because now everyone's going to come buy my comics.
True.
So it's true.
That's true.
But I have to counter signal you guys because if anybody in the world can be trans and have a baby, it's the Joker. I mean, come on. I mean, I'm just saying. I'm just saying the guy's insane.
Yeah, he is
coming of any kind.
He wears makeup.
Yeah, he's in makeup. He's already kind of trans. So you know what? On this end, I love the Joker. I hate that you had to turn my favorite villain into a trans person having a baby. But if you're gonna do it to anybody, just let's keep Superman straight. Can we keep Superman straight?
This would be a nice time to remind you guys, Rippa First Comics. This is where you want to go.
Do it.
We'll see you guys on Monday.